Hello, everyone. In the lead up to the AdTECH conference in Sydney on the 17th of August, I have got an array of out-of-home royalty from Australia with me today. So I've got Cath O'Connor, who is the CEO of oOh!media and a board member of the oOh!man Move. Paul Butler, who's the managing director of VMO, who is also a board member of the oOh!media. Our chair, Charles Parry Okeden, who chairs both the oOh!man Move, and of course me, Charmaine Moldrich, who is the CEO of both oOh!man Move. So as I said, you've got the out-of-home industry here talking about AdTECH. So my first question, and it's to all of you, but I'm going to start with you, Cathy, is AdTECH is a very broad term. I think people try and break it down into smaller parts. From your point of view, what do you see as the most important things about AdTECH and what's going to be discussed at this conference?
Thanks, Charmaine. I think you've raised exactly the right point, which is this is a broad church, and it's really about technology and it's really about data and all of the things that both of those factors do to enhance the industry, and how we as the operators of the industry are going to run to these opportunities. So if I look in oOh!media's case, of course, you know, no doubt everyone will hear a lot and talk a lot about programmatic. But in terms of data, we have far more customer intelligence on all of our panels than we share. And so it's really being able to come together and explore the ways, either individually or as a sector, that we can really open up the investments that we make in data for the betterment of the market, and to educate and inform buying of out-of-home better than perhaps we have historically. And I think we all do that individually, and that will continue to be the case. But I think they're really good conversations for the industry to have, you know, that we're all sort of moving down similar paths, perhaps with differences and nuances between the operators. But if the spirit of what we're saying is coherent and concise and together, I think that positions us very well. And the market is rewarding data-driven buying. And so how do we position ourselves and the sector to participate as best we can? The other big one for me, and I know there'll be a lot of content about this, is really the way in which data can enrich and enhance the content environments that we work in. And oOh!media, as you know, has a number of place-based assets, and increasingly using technology to deliver content in relevant and contextual ways to enhance the connection to our assets, and therefore to increase their effectiveness and ROI for advertisers as well. That's a really big opportunity. We've announced a big partnership with News Corp to be able to take that to the next level. So the extent that we can share and learn from each other around the content side of out-of-home, and how that will elevate and broaden the platform beyond just sort of a pure advertising channel is a really exciting area. So I think there'll be plenty of things to inspire and share and challenge ourselves over. And I think it'll be a really good few sessions, you know, in that regard.
Thanks, Cathy. So Charles, one of the points that Cathy touched on was everyone's doing something individually, and there's a bigger conversation to be had as a sector. Can you give us a little bit of your perspective on that as the person who is chairing the board of the sector?
Yeah, well, look, obviously, as Cathy mentioned, AdTECH is a very broad term. It really does encompass all connected data, I would say, across audience measurement, planning and buying, verification, attribution, and there's a lot of data out there. It's really important at an industry level. We're constantly evaluating and understanding those opportunities. But really beyond that, we need to understand how they converge and how they then converge at scale to really optimise the opportunity for the channel. So probably the best example we've got at an industry level at the moment is Move 2.0, or more recently 1.5, where We're building a world's best practice pool of audience data. How we're going to use that data, how we're going to aggregate and disseminate that data into what platforms to, as I said, optimize that opportunity, not just for the channel, but for advertisers to get the best possible outcome when they do invest in out of home. So as Cathy said, it's a huge and very broad topic, but there is a lot of conversations that are required at the moment.
And Paul, from VMO's perspective, you've been digitized for a very long time. So what do you see as AdTech in your business?
Certainly at the core of our business, Charmaine, I think AdTech for me and Val Morgan Outdoor is really, it's the fusion of the best technology with advertising. And in an outdoor sense, certainly that was made enormously possible through the investment by the major players and outdoor companies in digital formats. And now it's been really exciting with AdTech to see the evolution of the conversation from being one of why digital outdoor, why use programmatic, it's not the same as online programmatic, and to more around how do we use these technological capabilities to inform either through third-party data around to location and inform a better plan and outcome for brands and advertisers. So not one or the other, but a complementary approach, combining the latest in technology to deliver a really good and beneficial outcome for advertisers.
Great. So that's a great broad perspective. I'm going to dive a bit deeper, and I suppose, Charles, I'm really looking forward to the panel. And the OMA panel is going to talk about some really specific stuff about the foundations, right? You have to build good foundations. So my question to you is, what do you think we have learned? Because we're coming to this AdTech party a little bit later. So what lessons do you think we've learned to get us to the point where when we are truly in as a sector, not just as individual businesses, what would we be doing?
Oh, gosh, another big question. Look, I think, if I look back to the first AdTech conference back in 2019, there was a lot of excitement, for example, around programmatic. And the expectations at that conference was that, programmatic revenues will represent double-digit % of the total out-of-home sector within, 2 to 3 years. And that's definitely not the case. As we've seen today, programmatic in Australia still only represents 2 to 3% of the total revenue, but it occupies about 95% of the oxygen of the industry. And that's typical. That's how these things evolve in time. But what we do know, for something like programmatic to have scale, the industry needs to wrap that up with standards. And we need to wrap that up with a uniform digital measurement for out of home. Both of these things we've been working incredibly hard on over the last few years, and we've made enormous progress. And we've done that in collaboration with the Outdoor Futures Council. So I think it's going to be a really interesting topic and a really interesting panel on the day. And a lot of the work and a lot of the progress that we've made, we will share amongst the group on the day. It's always a live topic. It's something that we're constantly going to have to go back and review the standards, for example, particularly as we, try and push ourselves into the digital ecosystem. But it's a really important thing. And I think if we've learned anything, Charmaine, that we all need to come together and have these standards before we can get that scale and move forward.
Thanks, Charles. Yeah, it's a big journey, right, that we're all on at the moment. So Paul, just to soften these kind of deep questions about AdTech, I think one of the things that I've seen in the time that I've been in the industry has been the potential for creative. Creative has always been an issue in out of home because we've been the channel that, maybe someone upsized their print ad. But with digital, the contextual relevance, especially with you being in shopping precincts at 7-Elevens. How do you think advertisers and how do you think AdTech can help us with really pushing forward the creative potential of digital out of home?
Thanks, Charmaine. I think this is one of the most valuable and potentially underutilized capabilities in outdoor that we will see evolve. And I'm really excited to see some of the sessions at AdTECH start to delve into this. Certainly in the online ecosystem, having relevant, contextual and varied creative based on the audience is something that's quite common. We can do that at enormous scale in outdoor, and this move to context works really well for outdoor channels. We do great insight into location-based targeting as well as environment-based targeting, and we understand a lot about consumers and how they're behaving near and around our screens to inform better use of creative in those environments. So I think there's a lot of capabilities there that are underutilized that can be brought to the fore, and I think this evolution of the discussion, pulling some of the insights from the online world into how it's evolving in outdoor can really unlock that potential. So I think there'll be a lot of good debate about that at next week's session.
Great. So Cathy, you've got a business that is probably the largest out-of-home business in Australia. Many moving parts, only some of it is digital out-of-home. So how do you see this AdTech and particularly programmatic fitting into your ecosystem? How is digital working? And given that it's only 2% or 3% of the market at the moment, in terms of programmatic, there's a lot of excitement about it, and I think there's a lot of potential in it. But we don't want to ignore the wood for the trees in a way. So can you give us a sense of how you're viewing that? What lens are you viewing that through? Sure.
I think we all know that the market rewards digital attributes, and we can see that 60% of the ad pie is going to digital media. And we also know 60% of our own revenue is now digital or close to. So really there's a step change, and there's probably an inflection point at which we start to see a much more rapid move toward an automated type of buying in out of home. It doesn't replace the direct relationship. It never will. You can't solve a key marketing challenge or a business problem through a machine. It requires dialogue. It requires insight and sharing, and that will continue to be the case. But you do have to prepare for that inflection point, and you need to have your working view of when it's coming. And I think it is coming. So for us, it's about, yes, the job is bigger because we have, numerous formats and different environments right across the business. But if you look at the road, retail, street, sort of 70% of the business, preparing that for this sort of step change to automation is the biggest priority we have. So despite the fact we may sort of be a slower beast to turn, we're very much committed to preparing the business for that change. And I do think, the conversation doesn't go away. It does get a disproportionate amount of column inches from the trade media. However, I think the opportunity is there for us to start to tell the story about, creative scheduling, as Paul said. That's a massive capability that the brands and marketers and agencies that champion creative scheduling will get the most out of the medium and the better ROI, and it's a massive opportunity. A lot of brands and agencies now developing their own tech to be able to integrate and schedule creative themselves. These are all important and I think valuable trends that we can build on and create more rationale for the usage case for out of home. So I think it's all net positive, and you're right, lots to contemplate, but AdTech should help us at least put some clarity around where we're at and, importantly, what the opportunities are and what we're going to run at.
Yeah, for me, that is the most exciting and untapped area, is the creative end of the business and what can be done with it. And, I'm not a gamer, but I'm always watching gaming software and going, wow, imagine if that kind of design was in digital out of home, because there is the potential. Anyway, I'm not having an opinion here. I'm the interviewer. I beg your pardon, Chuck. Over to you. So I think, I'm really looking forward to the panel talking about the digital out of home programmatic journey. So there's been quite a lot talked about in the industry outside of us. We've been quite silent, and that I think has been very much a strategy, because we are just coming into this area. So what do you think, from an OMA perspective and a Move perspective, what lessons have we learned from online? Because we watched this space for quite a bit. And what do you think, as the chair, you will be getting the discussions around from a sector-based sense, so that we don't make the same mistakes? Because online certainly made quite a lot of mistakes, because they were learning and they were the early adopters. So how do you think we can move it faster, but from a more solid base?
Well, I think from an industry level, our responsibility is to build the foundation to build upon. And as we said 3 years ago, to achieve scale programmatically, we need to deliver a uniform digital measurement that will provide impressions by spot, by location for the market to trade on. So we've done an enormous amount of work. We're well down the track on that. The next part of that conversation is, as I said before, how we aggregate and disseminate all of that data into platforms such as Cathy's at O, where they've got a whole lot of first-party data that's relevant to that transaction as well. So that's the next big part of the conversation. That's our responsibility at an industry level, to have those conversations, understand how to maximise that opportunity. In terms of the lessons learned from the online world, they're a very different beast in some respects. Fundamentally, we're a one-to-many as opposed to a one-to-one. And that comes with a different lens on how we approach this opportunity. And as we know, we've got consensus around an impressions multiplier as part of Move 1.5. So I think we've probably addressed that, hopefully for the time being. And the other fundamental difference is, in the online world, you've got tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, if not millions of publishers. In our world, we don't. We have, maybe 20 or 30 publishers in this market to deal with, and we have limited inventory. And those things are fairly significant in terms of how we will approach the opportunity. And I'm sure that will be a big part of the conversation next week. But, I guess I'd wrap it up by saying, it does occupy a lot of the oxygen in the industry at the moment, but for good reason. It is definitely a big opportunity for us to tap into digital budgets. We've seen that happening overseas, and I can attest from my own experience in our German business, in that market, 40% of out of home is now transacted programmatically. In fact, for us in July, 100% of our inventory was transacted programmatically in Germany. So it may not happen quite as quickly or to that extent in Australia, but as I said, our job at an industry level is to build the foundations, to focus on the AdTECH, which is all of that connected data across the planning and buying, across the audience measurement, verification and attribution. And as I said, we've made enormous progress working in collaboration with the OFC and our fantastic members. So, as I said, lots to unpack next week at AdTECH, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Thanks, Charles. And the OFC, for people who don't know it, is our partners, the Outdoor Futures Council, who are a committee of people from both the agencies and advertisers who we're having these collective conversations with. So everyone, buyers, sellers, agencies, are all in the same room talking about this stuff. And I think, Cathy, that the reason why I explain that is because I think that kind of is one of the difference between us and online, is we're having collective conversations. And, one of looking at where we're at 3% at the moment, what we don't want, I think, from, talking to the board, is we don't want this to just be another distribution channel, so we swap what we sell directly to programmatically. I mean, there are some productivity gains, but what we also are looking for is that incremental income. And I'm wondering whether you can talk a little bit about how you think the industry can bring in that incremental income.
Well, I think that's a really good, what is substitution and what is separate and distinct. And if we, back to my earlier comment that 60% of the ad market is going to digital media, we're currently participating in the 40% largely, if our sector programmatic is at 2% or thereabouts. So there is a massive addressable market that we don't participate in. And I think within that you have search and things that probably reduce that slightly. But the fact is a lot of that is being bought omni-channel. And so the extent to which we can prepare the sector and the individual operators within it to appear on that omni-channel interface, we will be better positioned. And when we get there, because of the mass reach of the sector and the reasonable efficiency and to deploy to a large market in a pretty cost-efficient way, I think it's a really powerful place for us to be. But we need to organise and control the back end to be able to do that. I think this is a massive opportunity for incremental growth, both playing into the 60% that we don't, and also shoring up our share within the 40% that we do play. But there's no one way of doing that. It'll be different sectors, different agencies, different customers, many digital-only brands that have never considered out of home because it just looks and feels different to them. The minute it's on a dashboard with price and reach, by an industry sort of mechanism with the impression multiplier, I think there's a step change there as well. And then the onus is on the individual operators to work out what is incremental and what is substitution, and that will be a client-by-client assessment. Our experience in this very early stage with programmatic is that some of it is existing customers, but different budgets, and many of it is customers that we just haven't seen before. So I truly think we will hold our value and we will see incremental gain.
Great. That's a very optimistic view of it, Cathy. So good to hear. Paul, what the research that I've seen that the OMA have done is that online and out of home have very similar trajectories during the day. So in a way, online is, or out of home is online second screen. We're very movable. All of the ROI studies I've seen is that online and out of home work very well together. And one of the things that we talk about is how good out of home is as a media multiplier. So you're part of those journeys of people every day. How are you working through those two screens? They're interchangeable, but they're different. So same, but different. How is your business looking at that? What's your perspective?
It's building probably on what Cathy was talking to earlier, Charmaine, and there's probably two main ways. One is we're having real success working with online DSPs and trying to connect and inform our outdoor audiences with the audiences that they're buying online. And to the earlier point around context, I think outdoor is built for context. That's where the market is going. We know how our consumers move around our cities, and we know what they're doing and their reason for being in those environments. So that can speak to a really good opportunity for context. The agencies for some time now have been buying screens-based buys. Outdoor's not really considered as part of that largely yet. Certainly our evolution in measurement will assist that. But we deliver massive audiences at a really cost-effective CPM. So in terms of those agency-based buying metrics, there's a real role to play for outdoor as part of a screens-based buy that complements how advertisers are buying online. So I think the two are sort of joined together. We can target via omni-channel, but we can also be part of a screens-based solution because outdoor and online are really complementary in terms of delivering audiences.
Yeah, the massive reach is, I think, something that we bring to the table with one-to-many. So it's great to see the industry coming together to have this conversation. I've learned a lot today, so thank you, Paul Butler, Cathy O'Connor, and Charles Parry Okeden. And I look forward to seeing you all at the AdTECH conference on the 17th of August.
Thank you,
Great,
Charmaine.
thank you.
Thanks, Charmaine.
See you there.